You know, today I turn 84. Looking out the window, I see the rain falling slowly over the garden I planted decades ago. The same rain that now nourishes my plants makes me think about how I nourished my own body all these years. If I am here, lucid and healthy enough to record this video, it was not by chance or luck. It was by choice. A choice that many consider too simple to make a difference. Let me tell you something I've never said in public. At the age of 58, sitting in a doctor's office, I heard 3 words that changed everything. You have diabetes. At that moment, my world fell apart. The doctor, a young man with tired eyes, looked over his glasses and said something I've never forgotten. Mr. Thompson, you have 2 choices, medication for the rest of your life or a radical change in the way you eat and drink. The choice is yours. I left that office thinking, how did I let it get to this point? My children were still young. My grandchildren were just beginning to be born. I wanted to see them grow up. I wanted to be there. I didn't want to be just a picture on the wall that they would barely remember. Then I met Sarah, a 93-year-old woman in the park near my home. She walked every day, her posture erect, her eyes bright. One day I plucked up the courage to ask her her secret. She smiled, deep lines marking her face like maps of a life well lived, and said, "It's not what we eat that keeps us alive, my dear, it's what we drink. Life is liquid." That phrase kept ringing in my head for days. Life is liquid. What did she mean? I started researching, studying, experimenting, and in the 26 years that followed, I discovered that Sarah was right. What we drink can literally transform our bodies from the inside, silently, day after day. Today, my diabetes is under control. My blood pressure is perfect. My mind is as clear as mountain water. And I want to share with you the 6 drinks that transformed my health, and that, according to all the research I've read and doctors I've consulted, can help you live longer and better. But first, I need you to understand something. I'm not talking about magic potions or expensive products. I'm talking about simple drinks that our ancestors already knew. The kind of things your grandmother probably made, but that have been forgotten. Amidst the sodas, energy drinks, and gourmet coffees with artificial syrups, the first drink seems so obvious that you might be tempted to skip to the next one. Don't make that mistake. Water. Yes, plain water. I remember the day I realized I no longer knew what water tasted. Like, every liquid I drank had sugar, coloring, and flavoring in it. My sense of taste was so distorted that water seemed bland. One summer morning, 3 months after my diabetes diagnosis, I woke up feeling extremely thirsty. Instead of reaching for a diet soda, I filled a glass with tap water. I sat on the porch and watched the sun rise as I sipped slowly. I felt each sip go down, refreshing, cleansing. It was as if my body was saying, finally, this is what we need. I started drinking 2 liters of water a day, not all at once, but in portions. 1 glass when I woke up, 1 before each meal, and 1 before I went to bed. For the first few days, I was constantly going to the bathroom. My wife, Jennifer, would joke, "You're going to burn a hole in the floor from going to the bathroom so much." But after 2 weeks, something extraordinary happened. My skin, which had been dry and dull, began to regain its glow. My joint pains subsided. My digestion improved dramatically. And most impressive of all, I began to feel less hungry between meals. The doctor explained that we often mistake thirst for hunger. I was stuffing myself with food when in fact I was dehydrated. There is a secret about water that few people know. The time you drink it matters as much as the quantity. A glass of water 30 minutes before each meal significantly reduces the amount of food you eat. A glass before bed helps your body repair cells while you sleep. And a glass first thing in the morning, on an empty stomach, is like starting the engine of your metabolism. My grandson James once asked me, "Grandpa, how do you know if you're drinking enough water?" I answered with what I've learned. The color of your urine, son. If it's clear like light lemonade, you're hydrated. If it's dark like strong tea, your body is begging for water. The second drink that changed my life came from an ancient tradition, brought by my grandfather from Greece when he immigrated to America. Green tea. Not just any green tea, but the one prepared in the traditional way, loose leaves. Non-boiling water around 80°C, infusion for 3 minutes. No more, no less. I remember the day I rediscovered green tea. I was visiting Robert, an old friend, who had overcome prostate cancer. As we sat in his garden, he served the greenish beverage in small ceramic cups. "It's my secret," he said with a smile. 3 cups a day for 5 years. My oncologist doesn't believe my tests. I started researching and discovered that green tea contains catechins, powerful antioxidants that fight cellular inflammation, the root cause of nearly all chronic diseases. But most fascinatingly, I discovered that green tea contains L-theanine, an amino acid that produces a calm, alert state. Unlike the jitters that coffee causes, green tea provides mental clarity without the anxiety. I adopted a 3-cup-a-day ritual, 1 in the morning to gently wake up, 1 after lunch to stave off that post-meal grogginess, and 1 in the middle of the afternoon when my energy levels naturally dip. For the first few months, one didn't notice any major changes other than a decrease in anxiety. But after a year, my tests showed something surprising. My inflammation markers had dropped by half. The doctor asked what I had changed. When I mentioned green tea, he nodded. "That makes sense. Recent studies show that regular green tea drinkers have a lower incidence of heart disease and some types of cancer." That's when I realized that some of the best medicine comes not in bottles, but in cups. Jennifer, reluctant at first, eventually embraced my new habit. After 6 months, her arthritic pain had eased considerably. "Who would have thought," she commented one evening, "that the answer had been on such a simple piece of paper all along?" The third drink came into my life by chance, or perhaps by fate. Beetroot juice. Yes, you read that right. Beetroot, that vegetable that many people turn their noses up at, and that I myself avoided for decades. I was at a local farmer's market when I saw a white-haired woman selling small vials of a ruby red liquid. "Try it," she urged, holding out a sample. "It's the drink that kept my husband alive after 3 heart attacks." Skeptically, I took a sip. It was sweet, earthy, unlike anything I had ever tasted. Out of politeness, I bought a bottle. That night, before bed, I drank a small glass. The next day, I went for my morning walk and noticed something strange. I wasn't panting on the climb that normally left me breathless. I did some research and discovered that beet juice is one of the richest sources of natural nitrates, which the body converts into nitric oxide, a compound that dilates blood vessels, improving circulation and lowering blood pressure. For someone with a family history of heart disease like me, this was liquid gold. I started making my own beetroot juice at home. A medium beetroot, half an apple to sweeten, a piece of ginger to add a touch, and a few drops of lemon. I drank 200 milliliters in the morning on an empty stomach. In the first few weeks, I noticed a curious side effect. My urine and stools were reddish. Scared, I called the doctor, who laughed and explained that it was normal. 3 months later, at my routine checkup, the doctor frowned at the monitor. "Mr. Thompson, your blood pressure is 120/80ths. Perfect. What have you been doing?" When I mentioned the daily beet juice, he nodded, impressed. "There are recent studies confirming this. Keep going." But the most surprising benefit came to my physical stamina. At 65, I began to feel as energetic as I had when I was 50. My walks, once limited to 20 minutes, stretched to an hour. My grandchildren could barely keep up with me. "Grandpa has rockets in his shoes," joked little Oliver. The fourth drink I want to share with you sounds like something out of a witchcraft book, but it's simply ancient science in action. Kombucha. I first heard this strange name at my daughter Lisa's house. She offered me a glass of bubbly liquid. "It's fermented tea, Dad. It'll help your digestion." I tried it hesitantly. It was sweet and sour, slightly fizzy, with a complex flavor that I couldn't describe. I can't say I loved it right away, but there was something intriguing about the drink. Lisa explained that kombucha is a tea fermented with a culture of beneficial bacteria and yeast. It's like an army of probiotics for your gut, she explained. At the time, little was said about the intestinal microbiome, but today we know that the intestine is practically our second brain. It is home to trillions of microorganisms that affect everything our digestion, immune system, mood, and even our mental clarity. I started drinking 150 milliliters of kombucha daily. At first, I felt some gas and mild discomfort, a sign that my body was adjusting to the new population of beneficial bacteria. But after a month, I noticed significant changes. My digestion, which had always been problematic, normalized. The throat infections that I used to get 2 or 3 times a year simply stopped. The most surprising thing was the impact on my immunity. The winter I started drinking kombucha regularly was the first time in decades that I didn't catch a cold or the flu. Jennifer, always skeptical, was finally convinced when she noticed the same effect on herself. Lisa taught me how to make my own kombucha at home. The process was almost meditative. Brew the tea, add sugar, which would be consumed by the bacteria. Not me. Add the SCOBY, the bacteria culture, and wait patiently for a week or 2. The house gained a new smell, a new routine. It was like having an invisible garden of health growing in bottles in the pantry. One day, my doctor, noticing the improvements in my immune system, asked what had changed in my diet. When I mentioned kombucha, he confessed that several patients were reporting similar benefits. Science is just beginning to understand the power of fermented foods, he said. You're ahead of the curve. The 5th drink came into my life during a trip to Japan to visit Jennifer's brother, who lived in Okinawa, one of the world's so-called blue zones, where people routinely live past 100 with health and vitality. One morning in Okinawa, I was invited to a traditional ceremony where they served a hot, dark green drink in small ceramic bowls. It was matcha, powdered green tea, but prepared in a completely different way than regular green tea. Our host, a 92-year-old man with the energy of a 60-year-old, explained that matcha is green tea in its most potent form. While in regular green tea we infuse the leaves and then discard them, in matcha we consume the whole leaf, ground into a fine powder. This is the secret of our longevity. He said in broken English, we drink history. We drink life. That phrase has stuck with me. Back in the States, I incorporated matcha into my routine, not in the full ceremonial form, but a simplified version, a small scoop of high-quality matcha powder, some hot not boiling water, and a bamboo whisk to mix until a creamy green foam forms. The effects were more intense than those of regular green tea. The mental clarity was extraordinary, as if a fog had been lifted. In my 70s, when friends were beginning to complain of foggy brain days, I was experiencing the opposite, a growing sharpness, an ability to focus and remember details that surprised even my children. I did some research and discovered that matcha contains L-theanine in a much higher concentration than regular green tea, and also offers up to 10 times more antioxidants. Even more impressive, studies have shown that regular matcha drinkers have less cognitive decline as they age. A defining moment occurred when, at the age of 75, I took part in a local community chess tournament. Competing against much younger opponents, I won game after game. How do you manage to calculate so many moves ahead? Asked a frustrated opponent. I smiled and thought of the old Japanese man and his little bowls of matcha. The 6th and final drink I want to share with you is perhaps the most controversial, but it was the one that brought the quickest and most visible benefits to my chronic inflammation. Golden turmeric water with black pepper. I discovered this drink through Martha, a friend who had struggled with rheumatoid arthritis for decades. At 73, she suddenly seemed to move without pain, with a fluidity she hadn't seen in years. What happened? I asked, genuinely curious. Golden milk, she replied. Golden milk, an ancient Ayurvedic medicine recipe that my Indian daughter-in-law taught me. Martha shared her recipe: turmeric, the golden spice used in curries, mixed with a little black pepper, ginger, cinnamon, and honey, all dissolved in hot water or plant-based milk. Black pepper is essential, she explained. It increases the absorption of curcumin, the active component of turmeric, by up to 2,000%. Skeptically, I began making the drink every night before bed. The logic was simple. Curcumin is one of the most potent natural anti-inflammatories known to science. And chronic inflammation is the root cause of nearly all age-related diseases. The first week, I didn't notice any major changes. The second week, I noticed that I was waking up with less stiffness in my joints. The third week, the lower back pain that had been with me for decades began to significantly diminish. Jennifer, noticing the changes, decided to try it too. She had been suffering from joint pain in her hands that made knitting a passion she had reluctantly given up difficult. After 6 weeks of daily turmeric water, she was back to knitting, watching her create again, with tears of gratitude in her eyes, was one of the most moving moments of her journey. What struck me most about turmeric was finding that cultures that consume it daily, such as those in India, have significantly lower rates of neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. Curcumin appears to help clear amyloid plaques in the brain associated with the disease. As someone whose mother suffered from dementia, this finding was particularly significant. These 6 drinks, pure water, green tea, beet juice, kombucha, matcha, and turmeric water, have transformed my health in ways no medication could. Not overnight, but gradually, steadily, like water shaping a stone. Today, at 84, I take 0 medications. I walk 3 miles a day. My mind stays sharp. I sleep soundly. And while friends my age struggle with multiple chronic conditions and bags of medications, I feel immense gratitude for that scary diabetes diagnosis at 58 that forced me to change. The most important thing I learned is that the human body has an incredible capacity for regeneration if we give it what it needs. Not synthetic drugs, but the compounds that nature has created for us over millions of years of evolution. Of course, it wasn't just what I drank, but also what I stopped drinking. Sodas, even diet ones, excessive alcohol, those coffees full of artificial syrups and creamers, processed juices loaded with sugar. They were robbing me of my vitality, cell by cell, day after day. I remember a revelatory moment when my daughter Lisa brought her grandchildren for a visit. Oliver, then 8, watched curiously as I made my morning beet juice. "Grandpa, why do you drink those weird things?" he asked. I thought for a moment and replied, "Because I want to be here, strong and clear-headed, to see you graduate from college, to dance at your wedding, to meet your children." His eyes widened. "This is going to take a long time," he exclaimed. "Exactly," I replied with a smile, "and I'm preparing for it now." Jennifer, sitting silently at the kitchen table, had tears in her eyes. She understood exactly what I meant. We weren't just drinking for health, we were drinking for time, quality time with the ones we love, and that is priceless. There is a question I am often asked: which of these drinks is the most important? If I could only choose one, which should it be? My answer always surprises. Start with plain water. Simply drinking enough water at the right times will transform your health in ways you can't imagine. Then add the others one by one, watching how your body responds. Another common question: do these drinks replace medications? Absolutely not. Never stop taking medications without medical advice. What these drinks did for me may not be the same for you. We are all different, but one thing is certain: nourishing your body with liquids that evolved with us can only help, never harm when consumed properly. The secret, I discovered, is not in drastic substitutions, but in small daily additions. A glass of this, a cup of that. Small changes that, over time, add up to big results. When I think about all the experiences I've had since I turned 60, the trips I've taken, the time with my grandchildren, the projects I've accomplished, I'm amazed that none of it would have been possible if I had continued on the path I was on. I would probably be confined to a wheelchair, dependent on insulin, with limited mobility and a foggy mind. One final thought I'd like to share, something I've learned from observing friends and family over the years. There's a fundamental difference between getting older and becoming old. Getting older is inevitable, it's simply the passage of time. But getting old with all the limitations and declines we associate with old age is largely optional. I saw 90-year-olds climbing mountains and learning new languages, and I saw 60-year-olds who had given up, who saw themselves as too old to change, to improve, to live fully. The difference was not in their genes, but in their daily choices, including what they drank, Have you ever noticed how liquids have an almost magical power in our lives? The water that quenches our thirst, the tears that express our deepest emotions, the blood pulsing through our veins. We are beings made of liquid, dependent on liquid. What we choose to drink is not a trivial decision. It is one of the most important choices we make every day. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this video, it's this: it's never too late to change the course of your aging process. No matter your current age, your health status, or how many mistakes you've made in the past, your body is eagerly waiting for the right tools to regenerate itself. As the old gardener that I am, I know that even the most neglected plant can flourish again with the right care. Clean water at the roots, adequate sunlight, essential nutrients, patience, and consistency. The same goes for us humans. Today, as I record this video, I celebrate 84 years of life, not just of existence, but of true life, life with purpose, with vitality, with joy. And as the rain continues to fall outside, nourishing my garden, I raise my cup of green tea in a silent toast to the wisdom of nature and the transformative power of simple choices made day after day. Your journey of transformation can begin today with a simple glass of water. The rest will come naturally, sip by sip, day by day, and one day, perhaps 20 or 30 years from now, you will be recording your own video, sharing your own story of renewal and vitality. Thank you for listening to me today. If this video touches your heart or changes even one small habit in your life, then my 84 years of learning have been worth it. Take care, hydrate yourself well, and remember, life freely is liquid. It flows in the direction of the choices we make.